It's time to steep yourself in forgetfulness as we journey together to a sleepy camp way past the sunset, a restful, sleep-away camp run by a sleepy Wehkamp, where we whittle away our worries and cast off cumbersome consciousness. This is Sleep Summoner. I'm your host, narrator and voice actor Christopher Wehkamp. Join me now as I begin a new series to celebrate the release of My Hero Academia Vigilantes, in which I voice your sensei, Aizawa. We will begin a series of My Hero Academia fanfiction, as selected and written by my very own Discord and Patreon community. Thank you all so much for your contributions, and now let's begin. Heat or Hizashi by Aizawa. Oh, good gosh, I said, as Shota and I entered our apartment. Summer season was now in full swing, meaning it was hot outside. Walking to and from school was rather uncomfortable, but we were always quickly relieved by the coolness of air conditioning. This evening, however, it felt just as hot in our apartment as it did outside. We shut the door behind us, and Sho immediately went to the thermostat. 30 degrees, he read out loud with a sigh. The AC broken? I asked, fanning myself off with my hand. I'll check with the landlord, Sho replied, taking out his phone. I headed back to our bedroom and took off my hero costume, putting on a tank top and a pair of shorts instead. I walked back out to the living room as Shota got off the phone. I looked at him with raised eyebrows, pulling my hair back and tying it into a bun. They're unsure when it'll be fixed. Could be tomorrow, could be next week, he answered my look. Well, let's hope it's tomorrow, I replied, before going to our closet to pull out our electric fans. Shota also changed out of his hero costume into a pair of shorts and pulled his hair back into a messy bun. I set up the fans in the kitchen, facing them towards the kitchen table where we would be sitting for a while. I pulled some leftovers from the fridge, not bothering to heat them up as the coolness of the rice and meat would be refreshing. I also got out some cold milk to pour into the cats' bowls, which they were thankful for. After we finished eating, Shota cleaned up all the dishes while I got out our paperwork from school. We continued to sit at the table and grade all the papers and tests that we had, even more silently than normal, as if speaking would waste what little energy we had left. The heat was so draining. By the time I finished my papers, I was ready for bed. Sho had more to grade, but I was normally in bed before him anyways. I organized my papers and got up from my seat. Night, I said, kissing his cheek, and bringing one of the fans to the bedroom with me. I took a cold shower, brushed my teeth, set up the fan, then laid on top of the blankets on the bed. I tossed and turned, trying to get comfortable, and finally managed to fall asleep. I don't know how long I'd been sleeping when I suddenly woke up with a hot flash. Sho was in bed next to me, and though he was on the edge of the opposite end, in my sleep I managed to scoot right next to him, causing him to drape an arm around me instinctively. Though this was how we usually slept, and though sleeping in his arms normally helped me to sleep better, tonight it was unbearable. I wriggled out from under his arm and sat up straight, causing him to stir awake as well. He looked at me for a moment before turning with a grunt so that he was laying on his side facing the fan that was pointed towards him. I scooted to the opposite end of the bed, sitting in front of the other fan, trying to cool off. I got up to get a sip of water, then unrolled our sleeping bag on the floor right beside our bed. I laid on top of that and managed to fall back into a restless sleep until the morning. We followed our normal morning routine as best we could, though we were both exhausted and hot. We finally felt relief when we walked through the doors of UA into the sweet, blessed AC. We headed to the staff room and got situated at our desks. The AC felt so good, almost too good, to the point that I felt my eyelids grow heavy as I sat at my desk. My head suddenly felt heavy as well, and it began to droop to the side, but was caught by Shota's shoulder next to me. "Wakey, wakey," I heard the loud voice of Hizashi say, causing me to open my eyes and look up at him. Shota always looks dead to the world, but this is a new look for you, May. Did you stay up too late last night partying? He asked, jokingly. I sat up straight and yawned. You know me, I said, rolling my eyes and stretching. Our AC is broken, and it's hard getting a full night of sleep in the heat, I explained, looking at my husband beside me, whose eyes were shut and arms were crossed, sleeping while sitting straight up. You two are always welcome to crash at my bachelor pad, he offered. Well, it may be fixed today, so we should be fine, I replied with a shrug, knowing full well that Sho wouldn't want to stay at our obnoxious friend's apartment. I reached over and gently grabbed Shota's shoulder. It's about time for class to start, I said softly, as he sleepily opened his eyes. He grunted with a nod of acknowledgement, before stretching and getting his things ready for class. That evening, Shota and I walked home as per normal, arriving at a once again hot apartment. Still no AC? I said to myself as I approached the thermostat. 32 degrees. Even hotter than last night, I said, turning to Shota, who was taking off his scarf. Should we go stay with Zashi? I asked. He looked at me with a furrowed brow. It's not that hot, he said, unzipping his jumpsuit. Just as I expected, Sho wouldn't want to stay at Zashi's place. One of Shota's most valued possessions was privacy, and we both knew we certainly wouldn't be getting much of that at Hizashi's place. Neither of us had any papers to grade this evening and honestly didn't have much of an appetite. So after changing, I sprawled myself out on the floor of the living room, hoping it would cool me off somehow. Kohi and Lottie both appeared from behind the couch and stretched themselves out on the floor near me, having the same idea of cooling off. Sho came down the hall, stopping at the end of it and looking at the state of the living room floor. I looked up at him and asked, Can we please just go to Hizashi's? To which he responded with a long sigh. We have to pick our poison, heat or Hizashi. I'd rather choose the one that won't actually kill us, I said. So the heat? He said, deadpan, though I knew he was teasing. I chuckled as he walked over to me and offered me his hand to help me stand up. I shot Hizashi a text that we were coming over, then went and packed an overnight bag for us. While Shota got the cats into their crate to bring them with us, I quickly made a call to the radio station that Hizashi worked for on weekends. The station manager owed me a favor. Once we had everything together, we left the heat of our apartment and entered the heat of the outdoors. As we approached Hizashi's apartment building, both our phones buzzed at the receiving of a group text from Hizashi. Randomly got called in to do the overnight shift at the radio station, but I left the door unlocked, so make yourselves at home. See you at school. Shota read the message aloud as we walked. He stuffed his phone back in his pocket and looked at me with an eyebrow raised, immediately having a feeling that I was behind it. Well, isn't that convenient? I commented with a small chuckle, causing Sho to smirk at me. We got to his apartment and let ourselves in, releasing the cats as we got inside. They had been there before, as Hizashi had watched them while we were away. But it had been a while since I'd been there. As per his explanation, it was still very much a bachelor pad, with a foosball table instead of a kitchen table, dirty dishes everywhere, a pile of unfolded laundry on the fold-out couch, and a mantel with photos of himself and an array of his radio show awards on display. Shota stood in front of the mantel, looking at the display with a disgusted look on his face. This is what my nightmares are made of, he commented, shaking his head. I chuckled at his comment and then got a chill, causing my whole body to suddenly shake. It's so chilly in here. I'm going to sleep so good tonight, I said before yawning, as just mentioning sleep made me sleepy. Ready for bed? Shota asked, seeing how big my yawn was. Mm-hmm, I replied sleepily, still tired from the lack of sleep the night before. Shota reached into the bag he packed some stuff in and pulled out our two-person sleeping bag. I looked at him wide-eyed, wondering how he managed to fit it in the bag. He shrugged and commented, I knew the couch would be inaccessible, looking over at the messy couch. I smirked at him as he spread the sleeping bag out on an empty space on the living room floor and crawled inside it. He held it open for me, and I crawled in right next to him, helping him zip it up once I was inside. The two cats finished their exploring and joined us in the living room, curling up on top of the sleeping bag. It was quite chilly in Hizashi's apartment, so Shota wrapped his arms around me and pulled me close to him as I was shivering slightly. I buried my face deeper into his chest, and he planted a kiss on my forehead before resting his scruffy chin on top of my head. It didn't take long for me to fall into a deep and dreamless sleep, undisturbed by heat or Hizashi. With Our Paws and Claws by Walking on Clouds 444. Aizawa was annoyed at all the stares. Yes, he is now a large animal, but did they really have to stare at him and his kid? The kid. He meant the kid. Why can't they mind their own business? Protective and irrational thoughts make its way through his mind. He huffs in annoyance and realizes that he's picked up a few animal-like thoughts as well. This is going to be tiring. He sighs, wanting to sleep his problems away. When he got hit, nothing happened at first. He continued to fight the villain beside Midoriya, who of course had to be nearby and wanted to help out. He gave him permission to fight, after realizing he wouldn't leave, despite how dangerous it was being close. Then, an odd feeling overtook his body. That's when the pain started, a lot of pain. He couldn't think straight, but he just knows, that all his bones are breaking. He can also feel them rearrange themselves. It's hard to focus. It's not the worst pain he's felt. It's like the breaking of all his bones were greatly dimmed compared to how it probably should have felt, but it still hurt like hell. Then, in an instant, he was fine. No pain, not even a lingering ache. He opens the eyes he didn't realize he closed, and everything seemed different. Based on his height and the fact that he was on all fours, did he transform into an animal? Hold on, there are more important things at the moment. It wasn't until he was completely transformed. Fur, sharpened senses, tail. He notes that he sees the problem child take a hard hit and is knocked unconscious. Damn it. He took his eyes off once and this happens. He quickly ran and tackled the villain with ease, knocking his head down on the concrete, hard enough to knock him out, but not cause any serious injury. That came naturally. Now that he's taken care of that, what the hell happened? At first he assumed he was a large cat, but quickly realized he's way too big to be any normal cat. Aizawa walks right over to a puddle of water and sees for himself. He was a panther. Black, shiny coat, and the same dull eyes as before. Fitting. So the transformation keeps some of your physical appearance, too. He still looked pretty intimidating as well. Actually, a little more than before. No wonder everyone started screaming. Not only that, but the problem child had been hit by the villain's quirk too before he got knocked out. What animal will he transform into? Due to the delayed time for the quirk to take actual effect, and the head injury, he needs to get Recovery Girl quick. A stable environment is best, and better than a hospital when we don't know what animal he might become. Coffee sounds nice right about now. Since the villain was apprehended, and the authorities saw the transformation along with Detective Tsukauchi, they didn't freak out. Good. That makes things easier. He nodded along when Tsukauchi rushed out an explanation that they would look more into the quirk and how to reverse it or how long it will take for it to wear off. Also, it looks like we're not sure if we have the guy that did this. Some bystanders mentioned seeing a suspicious-looking guy running from the scene, but they couldn't tell if he was a part of the attack, he recalls. One villain might have escaped? Damn it. Aizawa cursed at himself. He must have taken a run for it during his transformation. It's bad enough he doesn't normally fight during the daytime or in public, but luckily everyone had been evacuated, and the fight ended before any news people could show up. The people in uniform run up to Midoriya to assist the damage, even though Tsukauchi and him are already checking him over. He's getting anxious, though. Where is the ambulance ride? As if on cue, one of the officers announced that the ambulance is still 15 minutes away. The urgent feeling to get the problem child some medical attention and away from everyone, untrustworthy strangers, arose again. I can drive you guys to UA since the ambulance is not here yet. Man, Roeser, I think I understand why you're tired all the time, Tsukauchi jokes. Aizawa glances at the man in thought. The reasonable thing to do was to let Tsukauchi drive him and his problem child to UA, especially since seeing a panther running around will cause chaos. But in this moment, Aizawa's protective instincts went off. What if the head injury Midoriya had was worse than it looked? It's traffic hour. So what if they don't get in a secure environment in time and he transforms, getting hurt in the process? He could be faster. He could bypass all the traffic and make a shortcut straight to UA instead of following by road. He turns to see his unconscious kid less than 10 feet from him being approached by some men in uniform. Tsukauchi is preparing to help him carry him into his car so he can drive them. He's not really injured, which is why he wasn't too worried at first, but thoughts of these strangers near his kid make him uncomfortable. He does the only thing he can think of. He stuffs his snout under the kid and hoists him up onto his back. He shifts slightly so the kid won't fall off and looks at the dangling arm near his shoulder. Instinctively, he takes a hold of his sleeve with his teeth for more security. He looks at Tsukauchi's shocked and questioning face, nods, then runs off to UA. It's faster this way. He needs to get there before Midoriya transforms. It could be any animal. Right now he doesn't trust many people with his cub, kid, student. It's amazing running like this. Completely different than running across rooftops during patrol. But it gives off the same sort of adrenaline. He's faster as well. That's a given, but it's still a drastic difference. He couldn't help but feel slight shock. He takes a turn on the sidewalk, only for more people to scream. Oh, great. His ears flicker backwards with irritation from the noise. To avoid people, Aizawa takes a turn near an alleyway that leads to a forest. If he continues this way, he's bound to make it to UA in 10 minutes tops with this speed, maybe sooner. If he would have waited for a ride, it would have been at least 35 minutes since it's traffic hour. He couldn't help but feel slightly relieved that he made this decision. He runs through the forest and revels in the feeling of dirt under his paws, much better than the hard cement. This feels more natural and fitting. He glances over his shoulder, teeth still clenched onto the kid's sleeve, to check on the still passed-out student. He eyes the dirt on his face and rolls his eyes. He swears this kid is always getting roughed up. Just as he turns his head to look straight ahead again, he feels the kid slightly shift and subconsciously grab onto his fur. A slightly warm feeling blooms in his chest, but he dismisses it. Well, now he doesn't have to worry about him falling off as much. Soon, the UA gates are visible. How will he get in, though? Surely that rat will let them in. He knows everything, and Aizawa has long learned sense to accept his cryptic ways. As if reading his mind, when he reached the gates, they opened. He doesn't hesitate to continue running to the main building and hope that no students will see him. Of course, luck is never on his side. Even though classes are long since over, there's still a large number of students that come in to ask questions or to attend some clubs. And seeing a large panther carrying an unconscious student while running through the halls is a bizarre, if not worrisome, sight to see. Ignoring the gasps and screeches, he passes his own classroom, which, oh, wonderful. Most of his students are there. But why? It looks like they're looking for something. Someone? Oh, maybe they noticed Midoriya was gone longer than he was supposed to when picking up groceries and came to look for me. Well, they got what they wanted. Here's Midoriya, and here's Aizawa. His students lock eyes with him as he runs to move past them. The shocked and terrified expressions would have been amusing if he wasn't so concerned these selfless idiots would try to stop him because the class's cinnamon roll was on a natural predator's back. They seem to be too shocked to do anything, though. Looks like they still need some training for reaction times then. Is that... Oh my gosh! Mito bro! Zuko? What does that animal have, Deku-kun? What's going on? What the? But what most caught his attention and surprise was Todoroki's response. Is that Aizawa-sensei? Huh. He's more perceptive than I thought. Maybe all those conspiracies are helping him learn to piece valuable information together. He does wonder what gave him away, however. Aizawa glances down at his neck, now fully aware of the pressure resting there. Ah, his scarf and goggles are still around his neck. How did he not notice before? Normally he would have noticed something like that easily. But his thoughts were too preoccupied with the kid. Seems like they were. Well, never mind that. At last he barges into the nurse's office and hurried towards the nearest made bed. He hears a shuffle behind him and expects a surprised reaction from the heroine, but instead gets nothing. He glances over and sees her rushing to check over Midoriya, who just started tossing and turning uncomfortably, not sparing him a second glance. Recovery Girl sighs before speaking up. Nezu briefly warned me of what happened. Now stop looking at me like that and help me clear the area a bit. He's going to transform any minute now. Soon they've both moved some of the beds aside and placed Midoriya on the ground so he wouldn't fall off the bed and risk more injury. Midoriya's eyes snap open in surprise as his body flinches from what can be assumed as pain. And then it started. It was painful to watch his cub, why does he keep saying cub? The kid, struggle and grunt in pain as we hear his bones break and rearrange. But he seems to be handling it pretty well. The reason is probably because of how often he breaks his bones. At last, as the fur ruffles slightly and his spots fully appear, the greenette is shown to be a large cat as well. Well, not large. In fact, he's still a tiny cub. Aizawa's not exactly sure what kind of cat, however. The problem child kept his green fur, with some of his black highlights turning into spots. But he can't quite decide which animal he is. Cheetah? No, not quite. It fits him well, and he's obviously a small cub, likely because the kid still had a lot of growing up to do as a human as well. If he didn't know any better, he would have thought the problem child was a panther as well, just green. And, oh, in a way he is. Midoriya seems to be a jaguar, which essentially is the same animal as him since panthers are jaguars, just slightly different in fur coats. His ears look more pointy as well, but that might just be his own characteristic taking part in this. Sighing, he sits down next to a bewildered-looking problem child, ready to explain. Can he understand me? Well, it wouldn't hurt to try. Kid, he says, but notice that it came out as a chuff rather than words in his left ear, yet his right ear heard the words that he wished to say. Interesting. The kid looks up at him with confused eyes. What happened to me? Where am I? A panther? Wait, but you're not aggressive. Is this your quirk? Do I know you? How can you talk to me? Why are you so big, or am I just small? This looks like... Okay, relax, kid. It's me, Aizawa. Now catch a breather. After calming down, he explains everything he could recall. The problem child seems to want to ask questions, but keeps quiet until he finished. So, we're basically stuck like this and we don't know for how long? Midoriya questions. Recovery Girl placed her cane down after giving a gentle kiss to the cub. Aizawa felt tense watching someone get close to him, but restrained himself because he knew Midoriya would feel better. There was no concussion, just slight bruising, and that was easily fixed with the nurse's quirk. She moves some beds back to their original spot and watches the two animals seemingly communicate. Aizawa finishes helping her nudge everything back into place while answering his question. Well, typically quirks like these go away on their own after a certain period of time. Most animal transformation quirks that affect other individuals will last from a couple hours to a couple days. Izuku hums, kind of, while he checks himself out in the mirror, Recovery Girl provided, and marvels over how comfortable he felt in this form. The quirk was fascinating. The fur, paw, ears, everything felt so natural to him, and it was so interesting how a quirk like this can link animal-like characteristics and instincts to the brain. Aizawa-sensei himself seems to be walking just fine in his new form as well. He's glad he got a panther and not some other animal. Izuku knows how much Aizawa-sensei likes and understands cats. His adjustment to the new form probably went smoother than if it was some dog or bird type too, so a panther was pretty lucky. Not that he'll admit this, but he's always seen him as a father figure after the USJ attack. Right now, he can't help but think Panther Dadzawa and snickers quietly. He looks over to see where exactly Aizawa-sensei is in the nurse's room, and once he strays a little too far, Izuku gets up and jogs over just to be closer. He doesn't know why he does it, but it feels like he's supposed to be near him. He feels safe near him, as if a bond is formed, like Aizawa will protect him. Yes, he is a hero, and yes, he has in the past, but it's different now. Despite already seeing him as a father figure, this feels more solid, as if he was actually his cub. Izuku knows this is ridiculous, but part of him wonders if this is part of their newly acquired animal instincts. Maybe it has to do with being hit by the same quirk while being in a certain radius from each other, or both of them getting hit in such a small time frame. Either way, he can't stop himself from trotting up to his teacher and rubbing his head against his side, like a cat would do to their owner for attention. This draws an amused huff from Aizawa when he looks down at his student. Izuku, realizing what he's done, blushes in embarrassment. "Sorry, I don't know why I did that. I just feel you give a parental vibe, and I'm not sure if it's the quirk, but the quirk would make sense, because that's the only factor that's changed from then and now, and even though you're my teacher, my dad left when I was young, so you're more of a parent than he ever was, but I'm—" "It's fine. Calm down, problem child," Aizawa says, as he nudges his head against the green cub in an attempt to calm him down. He immediately relaxes and is no longer quite as anxious as before. Then he suddenly gets the need to run around and be childish. His curiosity is more enhanced than before, and those ears on the panther's head look fun to playfully tug on. He pushes the thought out when Aizawa starts speaking again. "Listen here, problem child. It seems that with being turned into these animals, other attributes kicked in as well. Admittedly, I got anxious when others started to gather around you after you were knocked unconscious. I suspect that we will have to be sticking together more often now. For most wild animals, if an adult finds a cub, they'll likely take them in as their own. Since you didn't have your mother with you at the time, my instincts wanted to claim you, so I apologize for future reference." Izuku sat down next to him in slight bewilderment as he wondered how he knew so much about wildlife behavior. Probably because he loves cats, and apparently that includes all kinds of cats. Just as he sat down, however, his ears twitched as they picked up some sound outside the door. He looks at Aizawa and sees that he's noticed the noise too based on how tense he is. They both stand up, with Aizawa standing in front of Izuku, trying to distinguish who's approaching the door. Then a familiar outcry passes by their ears. "I swear, All Might, there was a panther kidnapping Midoriya!" Mina screamed desperately. Ah, his students. Aizawa relaxes slightly, knowing that these are people he knows, and as of right now, at least partially trusts. "Yeah, we saw them go this way," Seru eagerly agrees. Aizawa and Midoriya can hear them getting closer to the door. He wonders exactly how many of his students are on the other side. "Maybe we should ask Recovery Girl if she saw anything," Momo suggests. He can hear rounds of agreement as they approach the door and knock. From where he's now sitting, he can see Recovery Girl roll her eyes as she goes to open the door. "Hey, Recovery Girl, have you perhaps seen—" Uraraka starts, but suddenly cuts herself off when her eyes lock onto the two animals. The rest of the class stare as well, and for a moment, everything is still. Curious on how it would translate, Aizawa breaks the silence. "What do you want?" Oh, and how did that sound terrifying. He loved it. Suddenly, the class shrieks, All Might included, and he sounded like a little girl. But the most prominent scream was definitely his husband. Out of habit, he glares at him and uses his quirk to avoid anyone's ears from bleeding. He can use his quirk. That's relieving. Hizashi pauses when he realizes what exactly just happened. "Shota?" he asks with wide eyes. At least he's calmed down a bit. The rest of his class still looks on the verge of an aneurysm. He nods and can't help but suddenly just want to cuddle. It's been a long day already. Some coffee sounds nice right about now, too. I told you, he hears Todoroki whisper proudly to a shocked Momo. In fact, the whole class is stock still right now. How did this happen? Some kind of quirk? Oh, and who's this little adorable listener over here? He coos, looking at Midoriya. The cub slightly shifts more behind Aizawa. However, he doesn't think it's because of Hizashi, but instead of the many eyes on him now that he was announced. Luckily, Recovery Girl speaks for him. Aizawa and Midoriya here got hit by an animal transformation quirk. These kinds of quirks last from anywhere between a few hours to a few days. Midoriya will have to be excused from classes, and you will all likely have a different teacher for lectures until further notice, she explains. It takes a second, but now that the class has finally wrapped what happened around their minds, they begin to protest loudly. Huh? They can't be in class? Wait, but why? Imagine how cool it would be if we had a panther in our class. Kaminari whines with wide hand gestures and promptly smacks Sarah across the face. Yeah. Can't Deku-kun at least attend if he can still understand us? I'm sure he would want to miss classes because of this, Uraraka argues desperately. Ida makes a scandalizing gasp as Uraraka expertly dodges his chopping hands. This is most unacceptable. Clearly they need to rest because of this stressful transformation, and UA is far too prestigious to... Then a squeaky voice that you should very much hear if you know what's good for you speaks up. That's correct, Ida. Aizawa here and Midoriya do need to rest, but I'd still like for them both to attend classes. Imagine this as a test to see how well you can stay focused with such distractions in your lessons. Midoriya here, I believe, can understand the lectures, but his work will be excused or extended, the rat exclaims with that big, unnerving smile on his face. The students don't seem bothered, far too excited to notice. Aizawa's just glad they seem more relaxed now, but tenses briefly. A few brave students had decided to take a few steps forward. A couple still look hesitant to move, but those that are getting closer have their eyes locked on the little cub, as if they eagerly want to hold or pet him. All of a sudden, he can sense fear and distress radiating off his cub. Alarms are ringing in his head as he quickly looks down at the green kitten, who is trying to make himself smaller. Instinctively, he stands up, steps in front of the cub, and gives a low, threatening growl. His stance is low, and eyes are shadowed, his teeth bared, as he stares down the people that made the cub feel overwhelmed. Immediately, the class stumbles backward in confusion and slight fear. Aizawa-sensei? Oh my gosh, what just happened? Is he gonna eat us? Oh, I can't die yet. I haven't even gotten to see Momo. Who? Someone get this grape stain out of here. On it. Ojiro then grabs the perverted grape and yeets him out the window. No one spares a glance. Well, it looks like Aizawa here doesn't want you to crowd them. How about you give them some room and be respectful of personal space, Nezu smiles sweetly. Aizawa wishes to say his thanks, but then starts to wonder if the rat can understand him or not. Thanks, he says, hesitantly. The gleam in the rat's eyes only brighten. Of course. Now, if you wish to sleep in your own rooms, then you may. But you also have the option to sleep in the common room in case you would like the more open space, the rat offers, and starts to lead the way into the hall. Before they can start moving, Midoriya scrambles to walk underneath Aizawa, right between his two front paws, a safe and efficient way to walk if Aizawa does say so himself. He strolls toward the doorway, where most of his students are still lingering, and once he gets closer, he notices just how big panthers actually are. Right now, if he was to stand on two paws, he would be about 8 feet tall. Now that makes him think if his original human height goes into play with this, since he's quite a tall man as well. He passes by his students and trails behind the principal. Luckily, most students have already gone off to their dorms, so there shouldn't be too many people around to see them. Aizawa doesn't think he can handle another scream. They finally reach the dorm doors, and it suddenly comes to mind that there are a couple of students in there. Great. More explanations. As soon as they enter the building, shocked and fearful gasps can be heard from the couch area. They're quickly reassured, though, by the class rep himself. The lack of reaction was actually not too surprising, since they were the quiet kids. But something doesn't feel quite right. It's like there's a mysterious lack of enraged screaming. "What is that?" Right. Bakugo. That's whose reaction we were missing. "Hey, Bakubro, calm down. It's just Aizawa-sensei and Midoriya. They got hit by a quirk, but it'll only last for a bit. Pretty cool though, huh?" Kirishima is quick to explain. "Deku, of course he would get hit by a stupid quirk. And what's that, he turned into some pathetic cat?" Bakugo yells as he moves closer to presumably get a better look, but is stopped when Aizawa steps even further above the cowering cub, who was still walking under Aizawa's chest. Bakugo gets the message and huffs in annoyance, turning around and stomping into the kitchen. "I'm making dinner, so you all better be hungry, and if you don't eat, then I will shove this food down your throat," he threatens. "Aw, do you care about us, Kachan? Don't call me that, Pikachu." Aizawa turns around and heads next to the common room couch. Midoriya now comfortable enough to walk beside him. When he finds the right spot on the floor, with a sigh, he lays down. Finally, he feels absolutely exhausted. He's normally tired as a resident insomniac, but right now it's different. Maybe this is because cats are supposed to have more hours of sleep. He should know. He has 2 in the apartment on campus. Nezu offered to make Hizashi and him a sort of apartment space that's connected to the dorms, since they'd be taking care of Eri. Right now, though, she's with the Wild Wild Pussycats, who offered to have her for a few days so she can spend some time with someone her own age. Koda is also in need of a friend, so it works out perfectly. And good thing, too. This transformation would have only stressed her out, which is not what she needs right now. Just as he's about to close his eyes, he feels something jump on his back. Are those little paws? The little paws are struggling to not fall off as they make their way to the top of Aizawa's head. He looks up slightly, only to be greeted with bright green orbs staring right back at him. "How do you have so much energy?" he questions. Because seriously, how does this kid have so much energy? Maybe he can give some to him. "I'm not sure, but I want to play. Can I, just for a bit?" the green cub asks. Aizawa notices that he's acting slightly more childish than before, and he reckons that it's fitting since this is the mindset most cubs would have at this age. Also, are those spots above his whiskers supposed to be his freckles? "Sure, just make sure to stay close to me and in my line of sight," he requests. Aizawa slightly curses at himself for sounding possessive, but there's nothing wrong with wanting to make sure he's safe. It's just a precaution. Besides, sleeping can wait. He's quite curious to see what the little cub would do. He's not going soft, so shut up. Midoriya excitedly climbs off of him, almost falling flat on his face in the process. There's not much to do, but he manages to occupy himself with a loose thread in the carpet, chasing a fly and trying to catch a glint of light on the floor, which Aizawa's pretty sure the students were responsible for, based on the giggling. Soon he finds the cub trotting over to sit next to him for a break. As soon as he sits down, though, he freezes. What happened? Is something wrong? Why did he freeze? The problem child's eyes narrow at something behind Aizawa as he crouched in a low stance, slowly creeping closer to the mysterious object. He takes careful, silent steps and looks completely focused. The cub's shoulder blades roll slightly, and before Aizawa knows what's happening, Midoriya pounces forward. Instinctively, Aizawa moves his tail out of the way, which makes the cub miss his target. Aizawa huffs in amusement as he directs his tail in front of the cub once more. Midoriya doesn't hesitate to try to capture it, only failing a few times before finally tackling the tail to the ground, much to Aizawa's surprise. What was also quite shocking is when the cub started to tug and play with the tail, it didn't quite hurt. He knows that animals' tails are sensitive, but he isn't bothered at all. Maybe bigger animals have more resistance? He'll search it up later. He turns to get a better look at the brat who's staring down at his tail like it personally challenged him, and notices just how dirty the problem child is. His fur's all ruffled, and he's still roughed up from the villain attack earlier. It bothers him more than it should. "Come here, problem child. You're still dirty from before," he says, as he lifts a paw to all but drag the cub towards him. He decides to ignore the puzzled look on the cub's face and promptly begins to groom him. "Hey, let go! I don't need to be cleaned," the cub complains as he struggles out of the panther's grasp. The panther just drags him back and continues. "Tell that to your dirty and tangled fur," he remarks, eyeing an annoying tuft of fur that's out of place. This is embarrassing," he tells the panther, still struggling slightly. "Then stay still. It'll be over faster. You can get a better bath later with soap and water, but this will have to do for the meantime." Then he gives one final exaggerated lick on top of the cub's head, proudly creating a mohawk. The students nearby fail to muffle their snickers from watching the hilarious scene. Midoriya shakes to get dry, only for his already fluffy fur to become impossibly more fluffy than before. Aizawa struggles not to laugh at the adorably angry green fluff ball glaring at him, but fails miserably. Then he feels a sudden weight on his back again and finds the cub playfully tugging at his ears in the name of revenge. Aizawa just rolls on his back, laying on top of the green kitten. "Hey, get off, you're heavy," he squeaks in surprise, still slightly chewing on his ears. He notices that he can feel the little cub's teeth here more than on his tail, but it still doesn't hurt. "Never," the panther deadpans. He hears Midoriya give a huff of defeat. "Guess this is where I die, then," the cub jokes, which earns a low chuckle from Aizawa. He rolls back onto his stomach and manages to curl around the cub, who is now leaning on him. "Take a nap, problem child. It's been a long day," he says. Luckily, the cub agrees and easily snuggles closer for warmth, both ready for sleep to overcome them. "Oh, look how cute they are," Toru gushes as she bounces in place. "Shh, keep your voice down," Jiro whisper shouts, but it's still smiling all the same. Just then, the whole class witnessed something that will forever bless their hearts. Midoriya yawned. With his little teeth showing and eyes squeezed shut, the whole class coos at the adorable little sound the cub made. Then Kirishima's swatting at his friend's shoulders. "Guys, look, Aizawa-sensei is going to yawn too," he tells them excitedly. Everyone waits in anticipation of the next adorable yawn, ready for their hearts to melt all over again. Instead, the students' faces went pale, and everyone stilled in fear. The panther showed his wide, strong jaw and sharp, pearly white teeth meant to rip apart prey. His canines glinting under the common room lights, almost threatening them personally. Everyone steps back, slightly startled at what they just saw. "Maybe we should just let them sleep and wake them up for dinner later," Jiro suggested. "Yeah, good idea," Mina agrees, walking away to try to come up with an excuse of why she can't be the one to waken the demon. Once they're awake, Aizawa starts stretching to not feel so groggy. It was a good nap, but thinks he'd better be able to sleep after they eat. Just then Midoriya trots over to get a whiff of the food being set on the table. He sniffs, then turns around in disinterest and walks back toward Aizawa. "What's wrong? Not hungry?" he asks the cub. His green ears twitch slightly as he shakes his head no. "Nah, just doesn't smell good. The thought of eating something sounds great, but when I smelled the cooked food, my interest just wasn't there," Midoriya explains. Aizawa pauses in thought. Did their taste buds change? It would make sense, but what would that mean? Just then the door opens and some bags rustle. Hizashi comes strolling in, smiling brightly at the class. Then he spots the two animals and walks a little closer. "Hey guys! So Nezu sent me to pick up some meat, since he said your taste buds and digestive system most likely changed. We don't want complications after all," the blonde explains. Midoriya perks up after smelling the food the blonde has, and his tail begins to sway excitedly. Aizawa glances over at the other students and considers something for a bit before making a decision. He walks up to Koda. "Can you tell Present Mike that we would like to eat dinner in a different room? You students might feel uncomfortable," Shota asks. Koda's a wonderful student, but he needs to learn how to speak up a little more in case he works with other heroes or needs to comfort a civilian. This is perfect practice for him, but he won't push him too much. He nods with wide eyes and walks over to Hizashi, who smiles at him encouragingly. Shyly, he manages to pass the message, which has Hizashi giving him a thumbs up. "Thanks, little listener. Come on, show, Green Bean," he calls over, and leads them to a nearby room used for storage. "All right, guys, I have to go. Got some paperwork to do, but tonight I'll be able to swing by, okay?" Hizashi informs them, and sets the meat down. When he leaves, Aizawa immediately lays down and extracts his claws to get a better grip on the raw meat and starts savoring it. He looks over to see Midoriya hesitating, though, as if he wants to eat, but something is holding him back. "You all right, problem child?" he questions. The green cub just looks at him and then at the meat and decides to speak. "It just feels kind of wrong. I mean, it's like the animal was just killed." Aizawa pauses for a moment. "Kid, you eat cooked meat almost every day without a second thought. The only difference is that it's not cooked this time. Animal's dead either way," he says bluntly. The cub thinks about this for a bit before he sheepishly walks over to begin eating. "Right," he says, slightly embarrassed. Aizawa just rolls his eyes and playfully nudges the cub with his shoulder. "This was the best meal I've ever had," Midoriya dreamily states, currently laying on his back next to the bag their dinner came in. "Crazy what a change of taste buds can do," Aizawa says, because it's true. That meal was suspiciously very satisfying. There wasn't a single piece of meat left. They both get up slowly, full stomachs and all, to walk back in the common room. Most students are either cleaning up in the kitchen, doing homework, or just lounging around. Now that they have full stomachs, Aizawa's sure they can sleep a little deeper tonight, which is a nice thought. At least he can somewhat sleep well in this form. Oh, and he knows he needs it. As they make their way to the spot near the couch, both animals feel a nice heat source radiating along their fur from a distance. Both look up and find Todoroki on the couch reading a book. Midoriya looks back at Aizawa eagerly, and he gets the message right away, because everyone knows cats love heat sources. Sure, cub, let me just get his scent first. I think if I memorize it, I'll feel more comfortable with you being near him," he says, as he walks toward the dual-colored hair boy. Aizawa notices a lot of things are coming naturally to him, and some information he just automatically knows, like memorizing someone's scent. Maybe he'd questioned it before, but he's too tired to really care now. The fire and ice wielder looks up to see who's approaching, and their eyes lock. Aizawa props his front two paws on the couch to get closer and starts sniffing for his scent. A surprised expression briefly flickers across the boy's face as the panther leans forward to be nose-to-nose with him. To cement his scent, and for a little bit of intimidation, almost like a test of sorts, he draws an inhale, holds it, then exhales through his nose. Todoroki's hair ruffles slightly from the close proximity, but remains calm. Aizawa nods approvingly, gives the go-ahead to the excited cub. Midoriya attempts to hop onto the couch, only for him to fall down on the first try. He gets up quickly, and on the second try, he makes it up partially, claws digging into the fabric as he tries to throw himself up and over. Aizawa decides to show mercy and give him a boost with his nose. Midoriya then happily stumbles on the cushions toward Todoroki, sniffing the air for a second before deeming it okay. Aizawa theorizes that cubs are more trusting and can get scents quicker than adults, or maybe it's because Aizawa already seemed safe? The cub climbs onto Todoroki's lap, mainly leaning on his left side for warmth, and relaxes instantly. Todoroki's eyes soften and looks like he wants to pet him, but before he does, he looks over to the panther in question. Asking for permission? Respect. He nods at the boy in question and watches as he gently runs his hand through the cub's fur. Aizawa already knows he'll be trusting Todoroki more than the others, even if he gets their scents too. Oh, that brings a sudden thought. He glances over at the rest of his students who are not so subtly watching. He should probably get their scents too. Ugh, it's best if he gets this over with now. I'll be right over there. You're still able to see me, so don't worry. I need to get some of these brats' scents, he explains to the kid. Midoriya hesitantly nods his head, and Aizawa strolls over to the nearest group of students. Hey, Aizawa-sensei, what you doing? Kaminari asks warily as the panther gets closer to him. He stills, and everyone waits with bated breath. Aizawa, knowing that they can't understand him, explains anyways, just in case Koda would like to translate. I'm getting your scents. Everything would run smoother if I had them memorized, he announces. With his left ear, he hears what they hear. With his left ear, he hears what they hear, which is a series of grumbling and incoherent noises. Everyone turns to look at Koda, waiting for the translation. He said that he wants to memorize your guys' scents, he quietly explains. Aizawa feels some pride swell in his chest because that's the first time he's said something loud enough for everyone to hear on the first try. Progress. Why am I the first victim? Kaminari complains and tenses when the panther starts sniffing his jacket. Guys, help me! Try not to piss him off, Mina giggles. Kaminari's face morphs into one of betrayal. Traitor! When it's your turn, remember this moment, 'cause I ain't coming to help you, any of you, he declares dramatically with a huff as he slowly crosses his arms, afraid to make any sudden movements. Some of the students were a little scared being so close to a wild animal, despite knowing it was their teacher. So after he got some of their sense, he rubbed up against a few of them and let them pet him to calm their nerves. It's helped a great deal, and a few even took pictures to show that they're petting a frickin' panther. But don't let it go on too long. He still has a reputation to hold, after all. Just then, a loud blonde slams the door open. I am here, and breaks out into a series of coughs. Aizawa winces slightly at the loud noise, but relaxes when he sees it's only All Might. Even in his skeleton form, the man is loud. The retired hero smiles reassuringly at the students, but the smile wavers when he meets Aizawa's eyes. If the panther revels in the fear he sees there, then no one is to know. All Might then begins searching for something? Someone? He was looking for Midoriya. The symbol of peace relaxes slightly and starts to move toward the young cub. Aizawa tenses, and so does the rest of the class, but it doesn't seem All Might notices. The heroes in training all know by now that to get close to Midoriya, Aizawa needs to at least have your scent first. Voices cry out in protest. Wait, All Might, stop! That's not a good idea. Hold on! Nope, he's too close to the cub. Aizawa's anxiety and instincts begin to kick in as he sprints to stand in between the cub and the blonde. His deep vocal cords give a low, threatening growl, and it sends shivers down everyone's spines. With his claws digging into the carpet and bared-out canines, it's an understatement to say All Might stumbled backwards. The man starts coughing up blood again and wipes it away with his sleeve, slightly trembling. Listen, Aizawa doesn't hate the man. He's a good guy. Maybe he even respects him as a hero. But the dude doesn't even have a teaching license, and he can be annoying sometimes. That comes from someone who married a literal human version of a cockatoo. Tell him to sit down, and sit down now, he demands, but not in anger. He knows the man would never hurt his student, but tell that to his stupid overprotective instincts. Gosh, he's ready for this quirk to go away. It's tiring. He said to sit down and do it now, Koda repeats to the shocked hero. All Might looks at him, then back at Aizawa, then him again. May I ask why? He stutters. Aizawa only growls louder, and the man does as he's told, now sitting with his legs crossed and leaning as far away from the panther as he can. Aizawa starts circling him, trying to get his scent. Of course it's going to take longer because of that stunt he pulled, but the guy didn't know any better. While he does this, his students start to explain what he's doing and why it might take longer than usual. Finally, when he's done, he starts making his way to the cub, giving a head tilt to All Might. The blonde scrambles to get up and follow the panther toward the couch. All Might looks like he really wants to pet the green fluff, but hesitates until Aizawa gives him a nod of encouragement. He gently pets the cub and coos. Aizawa still decides to watch them closely, though. Right when things finally dial down, another blonde slams the door open. What is it with loud blondes? Oh, but this blonde he likes. Shota! Hizashi all but yells. I feel like it's been ages since I saw you, even though it was only like 2 hours ago. But I'm just so tired, and I'm glad I don't have to work because the radio station's been so busy lately, and Aizawa tunes him out to think of how he hasn't been able to cuddle all day, and it's not fair. Every time he wanted to, there was always too many people or it wasn't an appropriate time. Well, forget that. He needs his daily cuddle now, and he can use this form as an excuse of why he's been so soft today. No one has to know. His students all know they're all married anyways. Aizawa takes long strides towards Hizashi and doesn't waver, even as the loud blonde gives him a questioning look. He then stands on his back legs and puts 2 paws on Hizashi's shoulders, just like a hug. He rubs his head against his face and neck persistently. The radio show host stumbled a bit in surprise, but he didn't fall. He laughs at the antics and hugs him back, mostly for support. Whoa! I feel like that lion whisperer from before the quirk area. You're so affectionate in this form. Please stay like this forever, the blonde jokes. Aizawa just half-heartedly glares at him and continues. Wait, when did he memorize his scent? Huh, he must have already had it. As nice as this is and everything, your death grip on my shoulders is making me want to fall down, Hizashi laughs. Aizawa rubs his head against his face once more before licking him on the cheek and getting down on all fours. He turns to check on Midoriya and sees the kid on the edge of the couch closest to them trying to get off. Aizawa walks over, and as soon as he's close enough, the cub jumps on his back, trying not to fall. Wow, cub, a little warning next time, Aizawa chides. Sorry, I want to see Present Mike, though, the green cat replies. It's a bit of a shock that he's more excited about him than All Might, though. He slowly makes his way toward him to stall for questioning. Really? I expected you to be more excited about All Might, Aizawa deadpans. He's seen the kid lean more on their side over time, but he still thought All Might would be his go-to. Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe it's 'cause you're more comfortable with him. Also, Mike Sensei is my second favorite teacher. That threw him for a loop. Second favorite? He says that as if All Might is not his first. Is he? But what surprises him more is when the kid ducks his head into the capture weapon on the back of his neck. Well, it's kind of embarrassing, but... And then he just muffles a response that Aizawa's excellent hearing can't even pick up. What's that? He prompts. What could be embarrassing? Is it midnight? You're my favorite, he hears his student shyly respond. And oh, how that warms his heart. He can't really figure out why he would be someone's favorite teacher, though. In fact, being in this form is the most affectionate he's been outwardly to his students all year, so why would anyone choose him as a favorite? Either way, he can question it later. Right now, he's got to reassure his cub. He crouched down, and his student hopped off his back at Hizashi's feet. But as soon as his paws hit the ground, Aizawa nudges his head against his problem child to calm down his nerves. The green kit responds by rubbing his head against the other as well. Thanks, problem child, he murmurs. Then he hears a small, content rumble from the smaller cat's throat. Did you just purr? He asks with a teasing glint in his eyes. That was adorable, but it's not like he's going to admit it. No, that was the vacuum, he tries to defend. You're a bad liar, Midoriya, he smirks. This gets his students to laugh nervously, probably because he knows it's true. Honestly, just call me Izuku. I prefer my first name anyway, he says solemnly. Aizawa has to wonder why, and finds himself getting worried at the idea of how his home life is like, but he'll ask that later when they're both human again. Little does he know he's going to be adopting this green bean, but that's another story for another time. You can call me Shota then. Hizashi will be thrilled if he notices another person using my first name. Says something about me opening up. He humors, and that got Izuku to laugh. Izuku then turns to look up at Hizashi and scratches his leg, asking to be lifted up. Hizashi coos some more and picks him up, running his hand through his fur. Gosh, little listener, you're so cute. Of course you had to be turned into the green fluff ball, Hizashi gushes. Soon all three are on the couch contentedly, while everyone bids their good nights with a few pats and pets. Izuku is quick to sleep in Hizashi's arms, and he can tell he's afraid to move in case he wakes him up. Sho, what do I do? I don't want to wake the little listener up, the blonde whispers. The panther just rolls his eyes, because he knows that he really just wants to stay. So he sprawled halfway across the blonde's lap as a message that he can and should stay. Hizashi just rests the arm that are carrying Izuku on top of the large black cat. You know me so well, Sho. And don't worry, I've fed the cats already, he says quietly. He looks up at his husband, and they briefly lean forwards to touch foreheads. They do this every night, and when they have nights where the other's on a mission, then they do it twice the next day. It's to remind each other that they're there and will always come back to each other. It's morning before they realize it, and just like any other morning, Shota wakes up to a tail slapping him in the face. His eyes open and finds that he doesn't remember having a green cat. Then he looks down at his would-be hands to find paws, and under him is his poor husband, who's somehow not suffocating from having a 250-pound panther laying on top of him. He turns his head slightly to see the green tail that's about to smack him in the face once again. He accepts his fate and lets it happen. Right, Izuku and him got hit by a quirk. If the police don't have the correct villain by now, he'll hunt down the person himself. He looks over to see if his cub is awake. By the looks of it, he's just waking up. Good. Seems like they got up right before everyone else. He can already hear a few kids upstairs getting ready to come down. He looks down at the dumb blonde in consideration if he should wake him or let Izuku do it. That'd be a good way to wake Izuku up more, though. "Hey, cub," he whispers, not wanting to make too loud of a noise. Izuku looks at him, eyes still half closed, and yawns. The little noise he made had Shota heart clench. "Yeah?" Izuku questions. He's also laying on Hizashi, mostly on his left side, while Shota lays partially on Hizashi's right side. So when Izuku sees this, he freaks out in worry. "Oh, I didn't mean to fall asleep. I hope I'm not too heavy. What if he has trouble breathing because of me? Oh, I don't think I can handle being responsible for that kind of thing. Why am I always such a burden?" "Problem child, look at me," Shota instructs. Izuku looks straight at him, worry evident in the cub's eyes. "You're worried about your weight?" he jokes incredulously. "You're right. Sorry. But still, how is he breathing fine?" he asks sheepishly. They both look at him to see him sleeping peacefully, not a single bit bothered. "Well, I suppose he gets used to me, Eri, and 2 other cats dogpiling him all the time," he retorts. Izuku smiles, well, as much as you can when you're an animal. "Go ahead and wake him up. I'm sure it'd be funny waking up to a large panther staring down at him, but I'm feeling nice today. He'll appreciate a green, fluffy cat," he offers. Izuku perks up at the mention of getting to wake him up and trots over from his stomach to his chest, looking down at his face. He puts both little paws on the man's face and meows as loud as he can. It comes out as a half meow squeak, since most jaguars can't do a full meow, but close enough. The blonde hero's eyes flutter open, and he takes a moment to comprehend what he's staring at. A green cat. No, a green cub with black spots? What? Then he looks over to the side to find a panther lying halfway on top of him, just staring. His eyes widen slightly, and it takes a second, but he knows those eyes. Both of these eyes. Oh, so that wasn't a weird dream. "Hey, little one. I'm glad you're the one that woke me up and not him. I'm pretty sure I would have blown everyone's eardrums off," he chuckles nervously. Other than that, what an adorable sight to wake up to. Shota wants to laugh at what Hizashi said because it's true. He could have made their ears bleed. But he has his quirk, so it would have been fine. Hizashi reaches over to gently run his fingers through Shota's coat and starts scratching under the panther's chin. A deep rumbling makes itself known, and Shota startles at the sound he just made. "Oh my god, you just purred!" Hizashi squeals in excitement. Aizawa can feel Izuku staring at them with a huge grin on his face, and sure enough, when he turns to look, the problem child's doing just that. "Shut up," he says, slightly embarrassed. Izuku just snickers at his response. They start hearing some of the students running down the stairs, ready to start a new day. Just when Shota was wondering if they had enough meat left for breakfast, a phone begins to ring. Both Izuku and Shota get off of Hizashi so he can answer the phone. "Hey, it's Present Mike. Who's calling?" he answers. And of course, Shota had to use his quirk on him. "Uh-huh. Yep. Oh, that's great. Yeah, that sounds good. But I'm sure this old grumpy cat would want to get to teaching as soon as he can. So you think we could do it over here? Plus, we don't want any civilians freaking out. Awesome. See you soon, Tsukauchi." He hangs up. Shota, already partially knowing on what just happened, still looks up waiting for the news. "Great news, guys. They found the guy. Tsukauchi's going to bring him over so you can use your quirk on him and go back to human form. Isn't that great?" He all but shouts. He can't help but feel slightly relieved he can go back to teaching as soon as possible and only miss one lecture. These idiots need as much help as they can get. Wait. How does that work? If the villain that turned you guys into animals gets quirk suppressant cuffs on him, then won't you guys be back to normal already? Sero questions. "Oh, we have to go over these things more in class, it looks like." Hizashi answers for him, though. "No, little listener, but close guess. For quirks like these, the quirk suppressants will only suppress them from using their quirks again. However, if the person used their quirk before, then it's still in effect. That's where Shota comes in. His quirk runs slightly deeper than that, because if he uses his quirk on someone like him, then that last string connecting the quirk to his previous victim disappears. Pretty cool, huh?" Shota would blush slightly if he could at Hizashi's praise. Sounds of understanding come from the students, and they all get ready for breakfast. Shota walks over to the now opened fridge and peeks inside. Nezu somehow snuck more raw meat in there. Sneaky. Hagakure sees him eyeing the contents in the fridge and moves to the side. Need something, Aizawa-sensei? She asks. Even though she can clearly see him looking at the raw meat, he nods and grabs the meat with his teeth, nodding once again in thanks for presumably opening the fridge door. He can't see it, but she grins at the realization that he somehow managed to make eye contact with her again, just like any other conversation they have. It makes her feel seen and just a little bit happier. Shota lightly jogs over to Izuku, who is now waiting by the room where they ate their last meal. Looks like he woke up hungry. After the meal, however, it seemed like a majority of the students wanted to play with Izuku before classes. He let them play for a small bit, but if they keep this up, then they're going to be late to homeroom. All right, that's enough. You all should be heading to class. Don't want to keep Midnight waiting, he announces, waiting for Koda to translate. Once he does, though, the kids still look eager to hold the green cub once again, or give one final pet. He already knows Izuku is getting used to the attention and no longer shies away as much, but classes have to come first. They start to walk outside of the dorms to get to the main building, and he can feel the anticipation from his students. If they're going to keep attempting to scoop Izuku up, then he needs to put his foot down. Even if this is before classes, he told them that was enough, so they should treat his request seriously. As a result, he does the only logical thing he can think of. Okay, problem child, looks like you're no longer walking, he vaguely states. Just when his students are about to voice their confusion, he opens his mouth to show his canines and leans closer. He revels in the shock noises he hears from the students behind him. Oh my God! Is he gonna eat him? Ha! Ha! I know he's annoying, but I didn't think you'd eat him. Sensei, please don't, he's too young! He gets closer to his cub's neck and finds the pressure point that mothers use for their cubs so they won't struggle when being held from place to place. The problem child's back feet immediately curl up to avoid possible objects on the floor, and the young kit goes relaxed. He lifts his problem child off the ground unharmed and looks the others in the eye, some looking quite pale. Is he okay? A voice calls out. He can't tell who. He rolls his eyes and continues to lead the way, knowing that Koda, who knows a lot about all kinds of animals, will probably tell them that this is a natural and safe thing to do, which he does if his ears don't deceive him. You know, you don't have to carry me all the way to class. I think they get your point, Izuku laughs. He wonders if this hurts or not. He is being incredibly gentle, even if it may not look like it. As if reading his mind, Izuku continues. Don't worry, it doesn't hurt, which is really weird. I can feel your teeth, but it's not sharp or painful, just a slight pressure. Automatically, my body just went relaxed. I can't even struggle if I wanted to. It's very interesting, and as soon as I can, I'm definitely going to search it up because I want to see if this has more to do with nerves, the spinal cord, or... He rambles, but is cut off by Aizawa chuckling. You're rambling again, he explains, if only slightly muffled. The younger stutters and starts to apologize, only for Shota to cut him off again. You have nothing to apologize for, cub. Don't worry about it, Aizawa manages to somehow say. It honestly didn't sound comprehensible, but Izuku seems to understand. He refrains from talking the rest of the way, just in case he puts too much pressure on the younger's neck. Once they finally reach the classroom, he drags out his sleeping bag from behind his desk so he can keep an eye on his class. He drops the greenette on it and doesn't bother on trying to unzip it. He might end up laying down partially on sleeping bag and partially on the ground because of his size, but he doesn't really care. And so Shota curls up around his cub and shuts his eyes, listening half-heartedly to the conversations around them. He feels content. Holy... Of course, something has to ruin it. Wow, Shota! Nezu wasn't kidding. You really did turn into an animal. I wonder if when you turn back you'll magically be an animal and... Just before she can finish that sentence, he glares and uses his quirk on her in warning. She breaks down in mischievous giggles. Leave it to Midnight to say something like that. All right, class, I'll be your teacher for today while this lazy cat over here sleeps. Midoriya, you adorable little thing, could just listen and we'll get an extension for the homework. 'Kay? The heroine exaggeratedly explains. The day passes by fast, with only a few more screeches from other students in the halls. The whole point of attending class with the students was so that they can learn how to work and not be distracted. Most did fairly well. Only a few need to work on focusing at the task in hand, Mina, Kaminari, Hagakure, and, surprisingly, Shoji. The day passes by fast. With only a few more screeches from other students in the halls, the whole point of attending class with the students was so they can learn to work together and not be distracted. Most did fairly well. Only a few need to work on focusing at the task at hand. Mina, Kaminari, Hagakure, and surprisingly, Shoji. Soon they're back in the nurse's office, waiting for Tsukauchi to come with the restrained villain. Midnight and Hizashi decided to come along just in case things go south with the villain, but he's a petty thief and low-level threat, so Shota is not too worried. "Wait, Shota, before you turn back, I want to see if your paw has the pressure point that extends your claws," Hizashi says excitedly. He rolls his eyes and lifts a paw to give to the blonde. Hizashi gently takes it and presses it to reveal sharp black claws extending dangerously. "Wow, so sharp!" he exclaims, at the same time as Izuku. He doesn't know why Izuku is amazed. He's seen his claws multiple times before, the little fanboy. Just then there's a knock on the door and Recovery Girl lets them in. The detective, an officer, and a villain in handcuffs arrives to the scene. "All right, Eraserhead, let's make this quick so I can take this guy to the station and get a proper integration on him. You and Midoriya still need to give your statements, but you can just call me and tell me when you're ready to give them," his friend states. Shota nods at Tsukauchi, and if he looks hard enough, he can see Tsukauchi's eyes gleam. "You owe me coffee," he finally says. Shota glares at him because it's always the other way around. He bets the detective is ecstatic that their roles have been reversed. "Ready?" Shota asks. Izuku is looking a little nervous, but nods anyway. "Even if it hurts a bit, it's nothing I haven't handled before, right?" the greenette says with determination. Well, if he wasn't worried for his cub before, he sure is now. Again, just another conversation to add to the list. "You're strong, problem child. It'll be over before you know it," he responds. Maybe he didn't need to sound that soft, but it's not like the others can understand him. And then he activated his quirk on the villain. Soon, both of them start to change and shift. It doesn't hurt as much as the first time, but it's still painful. How does one get used to bones breaking? He'll ask Izuku for some advice. On second thought, that's a terrible idea. After a short period of time, both teacher and student are laying on the floor, once again human. Izuku's smile rivals the sun when he looks down at his hands. Shota was suddenly glad that they still had their clothes on them. That would have been uncomfortable. Hizashi helps Shota stand up, who stumbles a bit. It feels a little odd to be on 2 feet again. He helps Izuku stand up as well as the officer takes the villain back to the presumably waiting police car. Once the two strangers left, he finds that he can't really wait to hug his kid any longer, and Izuku thinks the same. They briefly hug, despite the watching eyes. "Thanks for taking care of me. I know I can be a handful, and most of the stuff I did was embarrassing, but I appreciate it," Izuku says to his teacher. Shota wonders how this green bean became so precious. "No problem, cub," he softly responds. Soon Hizashi's in the hug, then Midnight too. "Shota, I told you you're a softie," Midnight teases. The group breaks out in smiles and small laughs. Shota smirks only slightly. "Tell anyone, and you won't live to see another day," he threatens. Midnight dramatically gasps as the group pulls away. "All right, wait in the hallway. I'll be right behind you. Just give me a minute," Shota explains. The greenette boy nods and walks out with only slight hesitance. He hears the detective clear his throat and begin to speak. "You and the kid might have some lingering effects from the quirk, but nothing serious, so I wouldn't worry about that. It's possible that some habits may be permanent, but for the most part, it's things that go unnoticed," Tsukauchi warns. Makes sense. He's already acting softer than before towards Izuku. Before, he wouldn't even hug a student in front of his co-workers. He can feel his anxiety from being far from the kid slowly fade, but still linger there at the back of his mind. Looks like that might stay too. Does not look like it'll be strong enough to affect their daily lives, though. "Here!" Tsukauchi hands him something. When he looks at the papers, his eyes widen slightly. "Thought you might want one, just in case," he teases and winks. Hizashi looks over in curiosity and starts snickering. "I mean, I wouldn't mind," the blonde tells Shota with a small smile. "Well, remember, it's a just in case." And even if Tsukauchi gave them papers as a joke, he seemed genuine about the just in case part. Shota huffs and puts the adoption fill-out papers gently in his bag. As much as I want to. He already has a mom. Although we should find out if he's safe at home. I have a few concerns, he explains. Anything for the little listener, Hizashi replies with a serious look. They share a knowing glance at each other, filled with determination to keep this cinnamon roll safe. Even if there's nothing going on at home, you never can be too careful. Shota and him walk out to the hall and find Izuku waiting, who promptly gives them a big smile. I need sunglasses and a coffee, Shota says under his breath. Come on, kid, let's get to the dorms, he announces louder. The kid happily walks between him and Hizashi, and he thinks of how well he would fit in the family. He's getting way too soft. Way too soft. Okay, coffee, cats, work, coffee, cats, work. The walk was peaceful, the three of them talking about some funny moments that happened when they were transformed. Apparently, Vlad King walked in Class 1A's dorms to ask Shota a question, and when he saw a panther, he slowly walked back outside, said something about, not today. Shota didn't know this happened, but Hizashi watched the whole scene, struggling not to laugh. When they arrived at the dorm doors, Shota speaks up. Good luck in there. They're going to swarm you like a moth to a light, Shota deadpans as he approaches the door. You're saying that as if you're not going to get the same thing yourself, Hizashi laughs. Come on, kid. I'm sure they missed seeing you with your red shoes and all that, he says, trying to hide the fondness from his voice. Shota reached out and ruffled Izuku's hair, who leaned into it. This makes a gentle but familiar rumble rise. Oh my god, the purring stayed! Sukauchi said some habits might stay, and for you, it's the purring! Hizashi exclaims with wide eyes. This only makes the problem child blush in embarrassment and rush inside. They're waiting for us, come on! He frantically explains, while rushing in. At the loud cheers and the warm greetings, Shota could only hope no one saw the small smile he tried to hide in his capture weapon. The end.